On the broadcast tonight, the deed is finally done. Will Kenyans finally begin to enjoy cheap loans from the banks? President Uhuru Kenyatta has effected a momentous piece of legislation, one that is set to shake the banking industry in Kenya to its core. The president finally signing into law the Banking Amendment Bill 2015 to regulate commercial bank lending rates. Kenyans are celebrating. Commercial banks, not so much. We're covering this for you extensively. Our business team is helping us put this into perspective. Abi Agina is standing by with reactions from the Kenya Bankers Association and from Kenyans. We'll also seek to understand this new law better, and we'll bring in Kwame Owino, Chief Executive Officer of the Institute for Economic Affairs, Kenya. Will be joining us live from our city center studios. We'll also take it to where it all began 16 years ago, when the then GEM Member of Parliament, Joe Donde, drafted the initial bill back in the year 2000. KTN's senior anchor, Yvonne Okwara-Matole, will be speaking to Donde. Good evening from the KTN News Center. I'm Ben Kitili. KTN Prime begins now. Tonight, bankers in the country are weighing their options after President Uhuru Kenyatta ignored their protest and signed into law the controversial interest rates bill. The law, which caps interest rates at no more than 4% above the Central Bank of Kenya's rates, is the culmination of efforts that go back nearly 20 years. The president said he was responding to what he called the insensitivity of the financial sector to the plight of Kenyans. Our business reporter, Abi Agina, is working on that story. We'll be bringing you this story for you a little later on. Let's now bring you those numbers, try to give you those numbers of what this means currently. This is some numbers that were released by the Central Bank of Kenya earlier this year in a bid to promote transparency in the pricing by commercial banks. These are numbers from the 6 top-tier banks that control almost 50% of the market. These are numbers for personal loans repayable between 1 to 5 years. These figures may vary because of the different charges like administration, processing, legal and other fees. Now, Cooperative Bank of Kenya, the rates as of those numbers by the CBK is 16.6%. That is the rate charged on loans by Cooperative Bank of Kenya. The cooperative will have to reduce those rates by close to 2 points to 14.5 because the CBK lending rate is 10.5%, and the maximum the banks can go is 4%. Equity Bank is the other one. 18.1% is the rate charged on loans. They'll have to go down close to 4 percentage points. Stanchart Bank charges 19.5% on their loans. 14.5, that is where they'll have to go close to 5 percentage points down. Kenya Commercial Bank, 19.5 as well. They'll have to go close to 5 percentage points down. Now, Barclays Bank and CBA, Commercial Bank of Africa, are the highest. They charge the highest rates among those 6 top-tier banks, 19.6% each. They'll have to go close to 5, more than 5 percentage points. Those are numbers from the Central Bank of Kenya, of course, from the 6 top-tier banks that control close to 50% of the market rates. These are for loans, personal loans that are repayable from between 1 to 5 years. Now, the battle to cap interest rates did not begin with the efforts of Kiambu Town MP Jude Njomo. It dates back to nearly 2 decades, but all previous efforts have yielded no fruit. KTN's associate editor Noah Otieno now traces that journey and the final breakthrough that could change Kenya's banking landscape.
The last half of the year 2000 would bring the name of Joe Donde to the international limelight. Many wondered how he could take on the financial might and economic importance of banks by challenging the free reign of banks when it came to charging interest on loans. Donde's bill wanted almost exactly what the Jude Njomo bill has achieved: a maximum of 4% interest on loans on top of the Treasury bill rate, and a cap on interest on deposit not lower than 4% of the 91-day Treasury bill. The Central Bank of Kenya Governor Mika Cheserem then, the Finance Minister Chris Okemo, and the then World Bank County Director Harold Workman were furious.
Took 15 million shillings each to make sure that this thing is not in the order paper. Why call a meeting here? What for? Waste of time. Well, I don't know. People can't go and take bribes, 15 million each. They are senior cabinet ministers, and they expect me to sit with them on a round table?
Lobbying began in earnest. Some MPs then, just as now, fought the bill in Parliament. A whirlwind of meetings followed. Accusations flew back and forth on who was or wasn't working in the interest of the ordinary Kenyans.
And yet these multinationals now, instead of having in mind the plight of a majority of the Kenyans, they focus their lobbying only at the top. They think they can have their way by canvassing the vice president, the minister of finance, and the president.
We should say who gave the money for Honorable Kema myself, which it was. In any case, can we say this? I think the most stupid habit Kenya now have is to make wide allegations of bribery. I expect leaders to be above that.
It was a meeting arranged by the Speaker. We were prepared to attend if we were coming to this with clean hands. But since people are coming with dirty hands, I don't think it will serve this country. These guys are selling the country to the banks.
But MPs passed the bill on 5th December 2000. President Daniel Moi would later assent to the bill to make it law. But the bankers saw a loophole and jumped into it to save their billions. In the bill that Moi signed into law, the commencement date was given as January 1st, 2001, while the bill itself was dated January 6th, 2001. The Court of Appeal ruled the law could not apply backwards and told the banks to ignore the Donde Act. The war was lost. Indicated that the high interest rates could be addressed by a proposed law to overhaul governance at the Central Bank of Kenya. It never happened.
The solutions relies on the root cause of why interest rates are high, not second best solutions like controlling and all that.
Now 16 years ago, in December of the year 2000, it was billed as a 20 billion shilling war between the then game member of parliament, Joe Donde, and the Central Bank of Kenya, the commercial banks, and even the World Bank. Now, many people never expected President Uhuru Kenyatta to sign this bill into law. In fact, some people thought that the politics of controlling bank interest rates would outweigh the public interest. But now, by signing this bill, some believe that President Uhuru Kenyatta may just have locked down one of his biggest bargaining chips for his re-election next year in the general election. Now, KTN News, Nairobi.
As Noah mentioned, the man who started the struggle back in 2001 was former GEM MP Joe Akech Donde, University of Cardiff-trained economist. KTN senior anchor Yvonne Okwara Matoli has caught up with a former legislator and now joins us live from Loresho here in the capital, Nairobi. Yvonne, it must be a great day for the former MP.
Indeed, he's quite pleased, and let's hear what he has to say for himself regarding that. Obviously, having tried this before, thank you very much for joining us live on KTN Prime tonight. So just your reactions. It's been signed, but then again, in your case, we've been here before. Yours was signed, and then the banks found a loophole going to court. But what's your initial reaction to the president signing this bill into law?
I'm a happy man. I'm very happy indeed.
So let's talk a little bit then about the process that happened last time and how it could be different this time. Do you think it'll be different this time? Last time the banks found the loophole, went to court. Do you think this will be different?
Yeah, it will be different because even when we went to court, the arguments were very trivial. And I remember me trying to ask the speaker then, Honorable Kaparo, that the effective assent date and the commencement date are different. Could you take it back to President Moi to signify those changes? But the speaker said that when the commencement date and the assent date are not the same, the assent date will take precedence. So don't worry. And of course I was still worried because I didn't want any mistakes. But then
you had every reason to be worried.
Then the bank came in and they said the same argument. And that's what happened.
All right, let's talk a little bit now about the reactions that have been coming in. The Bankers Association of Kenya have, agreed and said they will abide by the law, but they have said that there is little evidence from other countries that such interventions have worked or helped in terms of making, credit accessible to the people. What do you say to that?
Well, at the moment, there are 85 countries around the world who are doing that directly. Mm-hmm. But the rest of the countries are doing it indirectly. When you go to countries like Europe and America, it is uniform that once the central banks or the federal bank or the Buddhist bank set the rates, the banks automatically comply and set their rates along that line. But here, the banks are rogues. The Donde Bill created the Monetary Policy Committee, which sets interest rate, but the banks don't follow. So what do you do under the circumstances? We make them follow. Because if it was like in Europe, once the rate is set by the CBK the way they are doing it now, and the Monetary Policy Committee was created by the Donde Act, right, precisely to set the rates and then the banks to put their rates along those lines. But they have never followed it.
So do you then trust, well, there was the MOU that was done by the Bankers Association before this, and some say in an attempt to forestall the president from signing the law. Well, that has happened. Do you not think the banks can self-regulate? Have they not shown, the faith and the trust to do this?
16 years ago, when the Donde Bill came in place, it took us 6-7 months arguing with the banks in the best way forward. I wasn't going to bring this bill if the banks could be honest and take their honest money from Kenyans. But they were dishonest. They actually told me that if I give them time, they will comply, they'll bring the rates down. They actually accepted the rates were too high, and so on and so on. 16 years down the line, have they done it?
So some say this is not the solution, that banks can simply decide to raise other charges and make it extremely difficult, or put in, a number of preconditions as a way of saying they're not going to be lending to individual lenders, but then in fact go towards the government and lend them money, and that capping interest rates is not the ultimate solution to this.
That is the ultimate solution. There's no other solution.
What about them raising the rates and making it harder for people to access credit?
I mean, they can't
do that. They can't do that.
They can't do that because this law says that interest rate and bank charges are included in this thing. So there's no way they can actually raise bank charges, other unseen charges, because the law already tells them that they are not supposed to do that.
Okay, but some say that, this is not the only issue that is affecting interest rates in the country, and that there are many other issues that we need to take a look at. For example, the problem with the government, borrowing locally. In fact, in the budget this year, they're targeting about 250 billion shillings, and that budget was approved by Parliament, and therefore that the government continuously borrowing locally then increases the interest rates anyway, and that perhaps capping the rate isn't exactly cushioning for the individual borrowers.
There's so much money in this country. NSSF only is worth over 250 billion. So we can lend to government and lend to business without any problem at all. There's so much money. The insurance companies, the pension institutions, there's so many institutions which are keeping money. There's enough money to go around for government and go around for business. The only problem we have, we saw like today a bank declaring 6 months profit, 10 billion. By the end of the year, he will be saying one bank will have made 20 billion, and we have 44 banks. So it is the banks who are distorting the arrangement and making it difficult for the government to plan.
Economists are on record saying that this is a big mistake, that the impact on the economy will be massive. They're referring to some countries like Zambia that have had to reverse a similar law, and saying this is much bigger.
The Zambia law is not similar law. This law, before it was enacted in 2000, the USID government gave to Parliament money enough for 18 MPs to go and benchmark in the Bank of England, to go and benchmark with the Federal Reserve Bank, to go and benchmark with the Bank of South Africa, and to go and benchmark with West Germany. And we divided ourselves into two groups. And this is why it took so long. And we went around to all the central governments of this country, and they told us, go and pass the bill. It was thorough research. That's why after 16 years, there's no member of parliament who can bring it differently. Because was a thorough research. We went to Federal Reserve Bank. They have reports in parliament indicating what, and we went with the committee which took all the discussion verbatim, and it was agreed that we come and implement the bill. We went to Bank of England. I was there. The Honorable Let Michuki and Namirara, they told us go and implement the bill. We went to Germany and South Africa. So really, I don't know which other country we could benchmark with.
So you're saying you're benchmarked with the best.
So we came back and the bill was passed. That's why the bill was passed also that time, by the way, it was passed in August, like this month.
Yeah.
Yet we were supposed to have passed it in January. That's why the dates were different. So there's a lot of work. I did a lot of work 16 years ago. And it was so thorough, it can't be otherwise.
So people talk about, regulation and government interfering with free market, and some saying that, okay, so here we are now, starting to put regulations and caps in the banking sector. So this opens the door then to government
I'll tell you two things.
Interfering with a lot of other...
Before the government intervened in the oil sector, there were chaos in this country. People were complaining, matatus, increasing fares every day, because there was no regulation. The government bite the bullet to say, they say, now this can't happen. And they started regulating fuel prices. That was the most difficult market to regulate. And it is working. We never hear complaints anymore. So really there's nothing wrong. We have a good example working in Kenya.
But even with that, with the Energy Regulatory Commission, then some still complain about the prices locally and the prices internationally. There were times the crude prices were so low, but
I don't know whether if you live in this country, you know how chaotic it was. Now there can be a few complaints here and there, but generally Kenyans are happy about the way the fuel is being regulated. And it is being capped every month. There are no chaos. This is a bigger market than the bank's market.
All right. Is this a populist move? Just as we close, the president is about to go into an election, and many saying by this he may just have won the 2017 election. And such regulations are always people-driven and very populist, but not exactly sound for the economy.
The president could not be looking for winning the election with this bill. Moi signed it 16 years ago. He wasn't looking for re-election. So really, this is a reenactment of what happened. So you cannot fault the president in signing it. Moi signed it 16 years ago, and he knew that what he was signing, and he knew the kind of work and research that went into this exercise, and he signed it into law. So really, you cannot say that the president is playing games or doing it for election. No, I'm sure President Uhuru Kenyatta is very serious about this thing. He has been also not happy with the high interest rate. And this is as a result of the collective wisdom of 349 members of parliament, representing over 40 million people. It is very difficult for a president to go against it, because these are Kenyans, 349 members of parliament, collectively. You cannot ignore their wisdom. And they represent over 40 million Kenyans. What did you want the president to do?
The people have spoken tonight?
Of course.
The people have spoken. Thank you very much for joining us on KTN Prime tonight. Yes.
The government should generally be providing conducive environment for the economy to prosper.
Okay.
Because the government cannot employ everybody. It is thousands and thousands of Kenyans who have ideas how to run businesses and how to do this to create jobs. And they want a loan of 20, 30 million to employ 40, 50 people. And the only conducive environment the government can give to its people is to, in order to prosper, is to give them an affordable interest rate. So that anybody who has a good idea, who can borrow money, 20, 30 million, and help in employing about 50, 60 people. If 10,000 people have these ideas, there are so many gadgets we import, like from Japan in the kitchen and all this in our place of work, which we need not import. Our Kenyans can manufacture them, but you require to start an industry which costs 20, 30 million. And the return with that kind of thing is 25%. Right. You cannot start an industry with a return of 25% if the bank wants 21%. Okay. So it is stifled a lot of good ideas and initiatives which Kenyans would have done in order to offer employment to Kenyans. Okay. This is the one single reason which the government should give a gift, a good environment for this country to prosper.
And they've started that with signing this bill into law?
In fact, I can tell you for sure, with the lower interest rate, the government need not put money aside for youth fund and women funds. They can go and borrow money from the banks, so that we don't have this problem with youth fund being stolen and so on and so on. Right. The government will just tell them these funds are closed, now interest rates are low, go and take it from the bank.
Okay, all right. Thanks very much for your views tonight. That's a former MP, Joe Donde, who's been here before 16 years ago, and here we are again with the President signing the Banking Amendment Bill 2015 into law. We thank you very much for your time. He's a happy man, and he says the will of the people has prevailed tonight with the President signing that bill into law.
From our city center studios, of course, we are keeping an eye on this story where bankers in the country have been thrown into disarray after President Uhuru Kenyatta ignored their protest and signed into law that Banking Amendment Bill of 2015 that seeks to cut or cap interest rates charged by commercial banks to not more than 4% above the rates charged by the Central Bank of Kenya. This, of course, the culmination of efforts that go back nearly 20 years ago. Yvonne Okwara Matole has been speaking to Joe Donde, the man who first initially drafted this bill back in 2001. And our big question, we did ask you, do you think the president's move will improve your life? Keep sending us your texts as well as tweets on this. Let's now seek to find out more about this new law, bringing in the Chief Executive of the Institute of Economic Affairs, Kenya, Kwame Owino. Mr. Owino, the majority of Kenyans are elated by this new development. Is this, the signing of this bill into law, at the third time of asking, the best thing that has ever happened to Kenyans in as far as interest rates are concerned?
No, I am conflicted about it. I think there's no guarantee that it's going to deliver what the objectives of the bill are. But nevertheless, I think the President made the decision that given the unanimity of Parliament, there was no reason to try. I suspect there was no reason to try and veto it, because then it would just come back through two-thirds majority, which would drag this unnecessarily. And so in his statement, he explains as well that banks have not shown sufficient good faith, and that has placed pressure on his office specifically, and left us where we are. So obviously there's some progress to be made. On the other hand, I do not deny this bill is overwhelmingly popular, and I think members of Parliament, and the National Assembly rather, responded to that pressure. But whether it is necessarily going to reduce interest rates and make that one access, I think is a matter to be seen.
While signing this bill into law, the President noted what he called difficulties that the new legislation might face, including possibly credit becoming unavailable to some consumers. Just how imminent is this reality?
Well, it just depends on how the banks and financial institutions that are addressed by this bill take it. If, for instance, they see this as an unfair kick by Parliament, and obviously they made a case which completely collapsed, then they may decide that one of the ways to do that is to roll back credit provision to smaller borrowers, which is a very, very real and present danger. So if that happens, yes, we'll have low interest rates, but there'll be many more, fewer people with access to that. And there might actually be specific segregation of clients and trying to find everybody. So the few people who will be able to enjoy low credit, interest rates will be there, but a majority of Kenyans will not necessarily be affected in terms of access to credit. And that's the real danger.
What about the potential emergence of informal, unregulated, possibly exploitative lending mechanism, loan sharks and the likes?
Well, that already exists, I think. Many Kenyans tell you, and sometimes when you interview people as well, they tell you how it's much, much easier to go to a loan shark or some neighbor who can give you money at atrocious rates like 10% per month, even when they honestly want to pay, because banks do not have mechanisms for reaching that kind of person, and have very highly formalized, not just formalized, very bureaucratic steps for having access to credit, even if you've banked with them. So getting a short loan or a loan of some modest amount which people could pay very, very quickly is a problem. So I think these might actually proliferate. The best scenario would have been to find a happy mix where, yes, we diminish the possibility that loan sharks and all this informal lending doesn't take place. But I'm glad that the President himself acknowledged that with this bill, I don't necessarily think it's going to expand, but it is clear that we have not established formal competition against the loan sharks.
How soon do you expect this new law to take effect, and will it affect all Kenyans with running bank loans immediately?
No. I mean, the bill itself, or rather the bill as passed by Parliament, did not have an effective standing date. So basically what that happens is that the constitutional provisions for the passage of a bill come in. So what is required is within 7 days of presidential assent, it's supposed to be gazetted. So we look at the specific office, and once it's gazetted, 14 days after it appears in the Kenya Gazette, then the bill comes into effect. Now, what's important is, of course, the prescriptions of this bill will not be backdated because bills don't apply, laws don't apply retrospectively. So what that means is, as soon as it comes in, which is perhaps, if everything goes well, 3 weeks from today, then I think from September, late September and early October, it may kick in, unless something else happens. But I think the rest is a constitutional deadlines, timeline rather, which I don't think anybody could stop now.
There's a question that has been asked by many financial analysts. What will be the effect of this new law to the microfinance sector, a sector that has been lending to a section of the population that was previously unbanked? Could this law kill the microfinance sector?
I don't know that it will kill them. What I've realized as well is, as looking this afternoon at some of them, many of the microfinance institutions which are established specifically to serve the smaller business people under the guise of microfinance have been converting themselves to banks. So the same rules will apply to them. Yeah.
So the Kenya Bankers Association have welcomed the decision, but have warned that some countries that have put arbitrary caps, so they are calling arbitrary caps on interest rates, have later reversed them to promote financial inclusion. Are we seeing a situation where we, or the country, Kenya, could be ending this way?
Okay, you must understand the Kenya Bankers Association have, and obviously and our colleagues at the Institute of Economic Affairs think it's not necessarily the problem. Unless you read cautiously what their statements are. Of course, say that the banking sector will be decimated or the sky will fall if this bill passes. I think all those things were considered by the President. My view is that the sky will not fall. Yes, there'll be difficulty one way or the other, but for some reason or another, it will be available. Formal means there'll be probably discrimination between those who get it, but small people haven't been getting credit from banks to begin with, so they may not necessarily suffer much. But yes, there's also the possibility that at one point in the future we may find that this bill does not necessarily serve the objects that we stated, and if that happens, I think that's what the President has just told Parliament. Look, you all pass this, let's see this happen. He's called their bluff. If it doesn't, Parliament will have an opportunity to reverse itself, and that tends to happen. So this is a policy in flux.
Thank you, sir. Kwame Owino, Chief Executive Officer, Institute of Economic Affairs, Kenya.
To matters rugby now, where the Kenya A-15 side team were very, very instrumental in cruising past Hong Kong with an impressive 24-18 victory in a first leg tie that was played yesterday. The team is going to have a return fixture on Saturday, and the side remains very, very optimistic that again they're going to do it and impress the home fans.
With both teams failing to find the breakthrough in the opening minutes, it was the away team that preyed on the hosts first, as Connor Hartley made an unconverted try to give Hong Kong a 5-0 lead. Mike Agevi pulled Kenya 2 points behind their opponents after successfully converting his penalty. The penalties kept coming in on the half as Hong Kong's Jason Jestap converted 2 penalties before Patrice Ogunga replied with a try to make the scoreline 10-11 at the break. After the breather, Kenya came back rejuvenated, and it did not take long before Samson The hosts kept pushing on for another try, and their efforts paid off through Cyprian Kute, who made Kenya's final try of the match before Hong Kong made one late on.
We put in the young boys who are coming through the system, and they're giving us a lot of hope for the future.
Yes, we made a lot of errors, but we can learn a lot and hopefully build for Saturday's test.
The two teams have 3 days before meeting again.
24-18 is the scoreline that has decided today's match. With one more match to go on Saturday, fans should expect fireworks from the two teams. Robinson Okenye,